Morning guys, I'm Dave Canterbury with the Pathfinder School. Thought I'd come back out here in the woods today. I brought the Rokon, loaded up my wood crafting tools on it, and I'm looking for a certain species of tree that I know only grows in lowlands in wetter areas. And that's part of the importance of understanding trees and resources that you're going to use in woodworking projects, is to understand where to find those woods if you're looking for them. And the tree that I'm looking for is called the blue beech. It's also known in Ohio as musclewood because the wood looks like it has muscular fibers in it, like someone's forearm tightened up that's got muscles in it. It's a very, very dense hardwood. It will actually sink if you drop a piece of it green in the water. It'll go straight to the bottom. It is probably one of the hardest woods in the eastern woodlands, and I want to use it to make a couple wedges. Wedges are the next wooden tool that we need to create with the simple tools that we have, that will help us split logs out over their length if we need to get a plank for something, or a longer piece for like a bench or something like that. We'll need to be able to split things down. We can also use these wedges in conjunction with our axe to help us to split logs out in lieu of using our froe or another metal tool. So wedges come in very handy for lots of things, and they're a simple wooden tool, one of the 5 wooden tools that we talk about in the 5x5 survival system. But we're going to take it one step further today, and we're going to find the hardest possible wood we can find to make these wedges out of, because we want them to be a permanent tool. Like our mallet, which will wear out over time, our maul, we made it out of a very hard, dense wood like black locust, so it would last a long, or I'm sorry, like black walnut, so it would last a long time. We're going to make these wedges out of the hardest wood we can find so that they will be long lasting. Stay with me, we'll see if we can find some blue beech down here. Okay, this tree is a blue beech, and you can see these ripples in its structure that look kind of like muscle, which is why it's called musclewood. And the leaves are very similar to other beech species. This is called the blue beech again. Give you a close-up of those leaves so you can see them. They're serrated on the edge as well. But the wood is very easy to identify because of these ripples in its structure. And this is a very, very hard, dense wood. It does not grow real large as far as the diameter goes, but it's very prolific. There will be lots of them when you find them in an area, and they'll generally they'll be in a lower wetland type area. And what we're looking for our wedges is something about the size of my wrist or bigger. This would probably work, but it's not perfect because it's kind of a bent tree. I'd like to find one that was a little straighter and get it close to the base of the tree if I can, to get the strongest part of that wood. So what I've done on this Rokon is pretty simple. All I did was take a double milk crate. It's almost exactly the same width as the back seat, and strapped it down with 2 trucker's bungees to the frame on the outside where you put your saddlebags. Strapped my saw to the outside of that, all my working tools, water, things like that, any intermediate survival supplies that I might need, really all fit right inside of this thing, very neat and tidy, including my axe. If I was going to bring a full-size felling axe, I would just strap it to the outside on the other side of the saddlebag rack. It'd be good to go. All right, so this one right here is going to work pretty good for our purposes. Again, it's about the size of my wrist. It's fairly straight for about the first 4 or 5 feet. And we're going to cut that piece off and take it back with us. We'll cut it into smaller chunks and throw it in our basket for what we need. I can tell you that this tree will flat wear out an axe or a saw, so it's a good test of the quality of your tools because it's definitely a dense, hard wood. But just a quick word on resource management here, because resource management is a big part of your longevity, especially if you're talking about a homestead environment. Now, I have over 4,000 acres out here that I can select materials from that actually connects to the Pathfinder School property. So I have a large area to be able to harvest materials in, and I can go far away from my actual homestead, which I'm about 2 miles away from it now, which is why I brought the Rokon out here, and harvest these materials, and harvest one single tree out here like this, in the grand scheme of things, is not going to hurt anything. There's probably 50 of these blue beech within sight of me right now. It's a very prolific tree where it grows. It's just difficult to find areas where it does grow. They're not a real common tree unless you're around a wetland or a woodland stream area in southeast Ohio. But these things will definitely test your saw and your axe for sure. A good sharp saw blade is a necessity for this wood. Just want to pinch my blade just a little bit. There we go. Look out, Rufus. Alright. Now, because I've got this laying on the stump, and the length of it is downhill, it's going to tend to pinch this saw blade as it goes down. If I lift that up a little bit with my foot, it'll relieve that pressure. There we go. Just like that. That's about what we need for one decent wedge. So we'll cut a couple of these and take them back with us. Well, I kind of figured since me and old dog here was out in the middle of the place for a little while here collecting wood, might as well have lunch in the woods while we were at it. So I got a fire going here. I brought a different kind of food out here that I've never used before, my bush pot, and I'm going to share a little chicken and rice with the dog. Let our fire get heated up here. Most of this wood's wet and it's washed, but I didn't bother going to too high ground to collect it. I'll just let it burn the moisture off of it and get going, and then we'll cook up some victuals. Well, I had never tried any of this mountain house food before, and this is a rice and chicken dinner. Got this water pretty much boiling, and this stuff is pretty much just a pour and cook. Got a little packet in there to keep moisture out of it. Alright, well, let's see what we got going on here. Looks like she's still cooking away there. I think old Rufus is about to drool here for a taste of this, but I'm afraid it's still too hot for your mouth, Rufus. It feels pretty warm still. Yeah, still too hot for you, buddy. You're gonna have to wait a few minutes. Let's leave the lid off of it. Okay. I think the old dog's about to have a heart failure here because it's taking so long for this to cool down. That stainless steel holds heat for a long time. Let me give it another shot, Rufus. That's not bad. That's not bad. You might have to be a little more patient though. It's pretty warm for you. Let's grab us a shovel over here. Pretty hot. Want to try it? Come here. It's hot. See? It's hot. Who needs a spoon when you got a flat stick? All right. Rufus is not convinced that this is cool enough to eat yet. But I mean, you might have to wait till it cools down some, Rufus. I'll save you some, be patient. Got a good flavor to it. But it's pretty hot. No. broth is still pretty hot, man. You can try it. I don't think you'll get into it. Pretty hot. I don't have any on my hands. I don't have any on my hands, old buddy. You're being patient, because I know you want something to eat. You just don't like the rice, huh? I should have brought you a Scooby snack. Hmm? You want the beef jerky. You want some beef jerky. I know what you want. Huh? I know what you want, buddy. All right, well, let's clean our dishes and head back then if you're not going to eat. Get you something to eat when we get home. Okay, before we get into making this wedge a little bit, and I won't show the whole process because it took me about an hour to make this one yesterday. So I'll get you started and tell you what you need to do, and then we'll just let you go from there. You can pretty much tell what it's supposed to look like. A wedge is a pretty simple thing. The good thing with a wedge is it's another simple tool that's very useful to you, and it will help you learn to use your axe. We use our saw to harvest the material, and now we're just going to use our axe to form it and nothing else. That's part of the challenge. And I've got several projects we're going to do over the course of time as we're going through this green woodworking phase of videos here. So stay with me, and we're going to learn to use one tool at a time, and we're going to learn to do it right. And once you get through the projects that we're making, you'll have a good set of useful tools. Now, we may get to the point where we make a few tools that are out of metal as well. I like to fabricate metal tools for woodworking as well. I've done some of that already on videos in my blacksmithing series, but there's a few more things that I want to make for this series that we'll probably add in that will be forge tools that'll be used for green woodworking. Now, as far as drying this stuff out so it doesn't break and crack, I've had a lot of guys ask me about that. What I do, to be honest with you, is I generally leave my projects outside here in the eastern woodlands. If I'm working on something, I never take it indoors, and I let it sit outside even after it's complete for a long time, and there's enough humidity in the air here, as long as I don't put it out in the sun. If I leave it under this overhang, there's enough humidity here that it dries out slowly and it generally doesn't crack. If I take something into the house, it cracks almost immediately because it's a lot drier in there, and there's central air and things like that in there that dry things out a lot faster. As long as I leave them outside, they tend to be okay. And then I use different types of oils after they're dried out. The exception to that rule are these tools that we're making right now, the mallet that we made yesterday and the wedge that I made yesterday. What I do with them is I let them dry out for a few hours after I make them outside, and then, to be honest with you, I soak these in motor oil. The same oil I use for quenching oil on my forge, the same container, I throw these wooden tools into it and let them soak for 2 or 3 hours in that motor oil, pull them out, let it drain off into the container, and then I wipe them down really good and let that oil absorb into the surface. And you can tell this is still a little bit oily, but it'll keep it from drying out, it'll keep it good, and you can always oil it up later if you need to, just like you oil or re-oil axe handles and things like that with linseed oil or whatever you choose to use. You can use the same thing on these wood tools that we're making now. Eating utensils are a different story. We'll get into that later. But with this, any kind of oil will work. I usually put it in oil not too long after I make it, let it soak up for a couple hours, and then wipe it down, repeat it in about a week. Okay? So, to the wedge. We want this wedge to be about 8 to 10 inches long. We're going to use this for splitting wood. Could be splitting wood upright against the end grain, or it could be splitting it lengthwise like a log. So we want this thing to have plenty of beef to it. We want this thing to be about the size of our wrist, is what we're looking for. All right? Again, we're not going to use anything but our axe to make this with. And with ironwood, you're going to find, or with blue beech, some guys call this ironwood here in Ohio, or musclewood. With this blue beech, you're going to find this challenge. So take the top end, or the way the tree was growing from the bottom, and use that upside down for the top. And then go down this direction to make your wedge. All I do is I start here, and I just start to cut into it, just like we did the other day. Going up, making cuts in, and then going down, shearing that off. The only difference is you're going to have to, with this beech, or with any wood with a wedge, you're going to have to go in at an angle. So when I do the next row, I won't go up as high. And I'll shave that down. What that's going to do is allow me to go in. Then I'll come in and dress that up with my axe. Get that a flat plane. I don't go very far on one side before I go to the other side. Always looking at it to make sure I'm keeping a flat plane there, or as flat as I can get it anyway, because I want that to be a gradual flat plane right there. Now I'm going to go over to the other side, just the opposite of that, and do the same thing. As high as I want to go, shear it down, or hew it down. Make sure that I'm staying pretty even on my wedge. Look at both sides all the time. Go in a little further this time. And continue that process until I get this to look like this. And remember, I want about 1/4 of an inch here at the end. I don't want it exactly pointed. The top, I'm going to chamfer it all the way around, just like this. I'm just going to take chops out of it all the way around in circles until I get what I want. It's a pretty simple project, but you're working with a lot harder wood, so it ends up taking about as much time in the end to make this as it did to make your maul. This wood is so hard, you're going to find your axe just glancing off of it half the time. But it's good to understand how hard this piece of wood is, because what you're making out of it is going to take a lot of abuse. Don't be afraid to square the sides up on this thing as you go, because you're going to want everything nice and squared up when you're done anyway. And by squaring these sides up, you'll just help yourself out later. You'll be doing yourself a favor, because it'll allow you to keep those angles better as you go. That side's pretty square. That side's getting squared up now. That'll help you figure out where you need to take more material off of. You can see this side's a little bit steeper angle than this side, but they're pretty close actually. From this side they look a little off here. Probably needs to be more like that, which means we just need to come in here, take a little off right here, get rid of that belly. Keep it squared up like that as you go, and when you're done you'll end up with that. All right, guys, I'm Dave Canterbury at the Pathfinder School, and I appreciate you joining me out here for another video in our green woodworking series. It's going to be a pretty good series of videos that will probably rival the blacksmithing and trapping videos as far as the sheer number of videos before it's over with. But I hope that you'll stay with me. We're going to talk a lot about trees, a lot about woodworking, all the way from very simple wooden tools all the way up to making woodland style furniture. I appreciate your views. I appreciate your support. I thank you for everything you do for our school, for our family, and for our business, for all of our sponsors, instructors, affiliates, and friends, and I'll be back with another video as soon as I can. Thanks, guys.